And we're going to start with that news that President Trump says the US will impose a 25% tariff on goods imported from India. That starts on the 1st of August. He also said the world's fifth largest economy will face an unspecified penalty for continuing to trade with Russia. Now, the Indian government has responded by saying it will take all steps necessary to secure its national interests. Well, our India business reporter in Delhi is Davina Gupta. And Davina, it's good to have you here. Talk us through the response to this so far, because we know that this has been in the works for a long time. But that means there are significant costs now for both Indian businesses and US businesses.
Absolutely, Ben. And let me start by reading out excerpts from that statement that's come out just a few minutes ago before we went to the program. It does say that India remains committed for its national interest, but it also says that it's committed towards engaging with the US for a bilateral trade agreement that is mutually beneficial for both the sides. So this means it's not the end of the road. It seems more like a bump with President Trump's comments on his social media handle Truth Social. But it seems that India from its side is hoping that they'll be able to convince US negotiators. They've been engaged in multiple rounds of conversations, especially after President Trump announced the Liberation Day tariffs. It's on pause for now for India. But if the US goes ahead now, we're looking at 25% of tariffs on India's exporters. These are people from labor-intensive sectors like textile and leather and gems and jewelry. And also we're looking at additional penalty, which Donald Trump is yet to specify for its dealing with Russia. India remains one of the largest importers in the world for oil, and Russia is India's largest oil supplier. And in the past, India has maintained that it needs this supply because it's at a discounted rate, and it helps India to help its population access to cheap oil and energy. So for now, India says that it's committed to its national interest, but it has kept that door open for further negotiations.
Yes, and Davina, I mean, the big question is whether that will lead anywhere, because, I mean, looking at some of those posts, you touched on it there, you know, President Trump saying tariffs are far too high, among the highest in the world for a friendly nation. And that's when we get into that area, don't we, of geopolitics, that this is sometimes about trade and business and economics, but sometimes it's about the politics of all this and sending a message from the White House to the rest of the world.
Absolutely. And politics cannot be alienated from here, because India is trying to protect its domestic producers. Because let's not forget, India is the world's most populous nation, and most of its population is dependent on agriculture. So it cannot open its agriculture sector to genetically modified foods and dairy products, which the US wants and has been a sticking point in these negotiations. But the other lucrative part of this is that even the US companies like Meta, Apple, and even Tesla, which is now in India, they need access to Indian markets because it has a large consumer base, and this is where they get most of their business also from, because it's a growing consumer base that cannot be ignored. So that's the leverage that India has with the United States. And of course, there's been a lot of talks in the local media once this news came about the relationship between India's Prime Minister and US President Trump, which will be tested in the coming few weeks.
Davina, good to have you there with the very latest reaction from there in Delhi. Thank you, Davina Gupta there, our India business reporter.